Welcome to 10-Minute Labs. Here we go. We've got Jesse with us and Kevin Markarian as my co-host today. Thanks, guys. But, Jesse, how do you shift it so that you're the man? There you go. You're the man. Let's go. 10 minutes. Siri, set a timer for 10 minutes.
So cool.
Okay, 10 minutes and counting.
You ready?
Let's do this. Let's ask me the questions that we wrote together.
Oh, Jesse. All right, let's go over the first one. Kevin, I don't think I asked you this, but let's ask it to Jesse. Jesse, what keeps you up at night?
Ooh, I actually knew you were going to ask me that. So I'm going to say brain chemistry.
Brain chemistry? What the hell does that mean?
That's not a real answer.
I'm going to say brain chemistry.
That's not a real answer. Ding, ding, ding. I go with what Kevin said.
So I'm going to say a combination of brain chemistry combined with just excitement and general enthusiasm. So what I mean by that is when I get into a new project or something I'm working on, I just kind of feel like I'm in the flow. So what keeps me up at night in a good way is like, I'm just excited and feeling creative and doing all these cool things. And then my brain chemistry tells me when I get excited, I just don't sleep much. So then I wake up in the middle of the night, probably like Kevin, probably like you. And my brain's just going in circles and going and going and going. So that's why I blame brain chemistry.
So what do you mean by flow? Can you explain to me how you get into the flow?
Oh, heck yeah, dude. So I am obsessed with flow. Have you read the book, The Rise of Superman?
Yes. Yes, I have.
Kevin,
yes.
You read that?
No.
Dude, okay, so I took a whole year off, if you guys remember, in 2013, 2014, and I was in Thailand. I read a bunch of books that year. And my favorite book, two books I read, my favorite, though, is probably The Rise of Superman, Stephen Kotler, and it's all about flow state. So it's all about basically the way high-performance athletes, extreme athletes, how they use brain psychology to get into flow, and then how regular human beings like us, right, can actually get into flow in business, in our life, everywhere. And I'm obsessed with it. It makes life fun. It's like you're playing a game. Like Kevin, you and I talk about this all the time. Do you feel like you work?
Sometimes I do, but I know where you're going with this. Most of the time, it's fun. It's got to be fun, right? And I think what you're talking about with flow, there's an author called Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and he wrote a book. He kind of is the guy who created flow.
He did. And so this author, Stephen Kotler, built upon that guy whose name how'd you say his name? You're so much smarter than me. Say it again.
I cheated. I looked him up, but I know about flow, and I found out about flow through there's this MMA trainer, and he went on Joe Rogan. He talked about flow. He's George St. Pierre's trainer, who's like a multi-world champion, and he talked about flow and being in the state of flow, where you're kind of in the zone, like Michael Jordan, right? Like he's in the state of flow where you're in that mode where it's not too difficult, but it's also not super easy. It's just right there. You're in that zone. Yeah. And that's the flow, right?
I love it. I'm in.
All right. So Jesse, how would you tell people that are listening in, business owners, agents, anybody here, how do you get into the flow and how do you stay in it? Because what happens in our business and in all businesses, we're getting bombarded left and right from everything, and it takes out of our focus. And then all of a sudden, everybody's got ADHD and all this stuff with that ADD stuff. How do you stay focused? How do you stay in flow?
So part of it is how I'm wired. I have a really high tolerance for repetition. I do. It's just like I've played in bands since I was 14. I would play the same parts over and over and over again. I don't know if you guys are the same way, but like I can just do the same thing over and over. So that helps me focus my brain, but I am really ADD. And so I think there's like a larger level of flow where you're like in your life, I'm just in flow. And then throughout the day, I get sidetracked on 16 different rabbit holes, right? So I'm talking about more in flow as in globally in my life, but in the moment, the tricks he says in the book, if you want like a 2-minute overview, the Cliff Notes, you got to set a goal that is between 100 and 110% of what you believe you're capable of. And I'll do the 30-second version of this story, but it's such a cool story. So Tristan, did you ever skateboard in your life?
I did.
Cool. So when you used to skateboard, could you imagine getting on a skate ramp and going down a hill and jumping over the Great Wall of China on a skateboard?
I never imagined it, no, but yeah. I remember playing the game.
Right. So Danny Way, who's a professional skateboarder, literally built a ramp and just jumped over the Great Wall of China. So if I could take, Kevin, did you ever skateboard?
I do now.
Okay, so check this out. If I got you guys on top of this ramp that was 400 feet over the Great Wall of China, and I duct taped your feet to the skateboard, and I somehow convinced you to skate down this ramp and jump the Great Wall of China, what would happen?
I'd crash and die.
Okay, Kevin would die. Tristan, what about you? He's honest. He's totally honest, dude. He would die probably. What about you? What about you, Tristan?
Dude, I probably would die too.
And thank you for being honest, because I would absolutely die. 100% would be dead. Like, there's no way I could land that, because the idea of jumping this ramp is so far above what is 100% for me. It's so far above 110%. I would lock up in fear, and I would just flail, and like it'd be terrible. But if you build up to that level, and that's where you're at, between 100 and 110% is where your brain needs to be to trigger that flow state. If it's too easy, you're not challenged. Boring, whatever. Kevin and I talk about this all the time. You're bored, dude. You've mastered. Kevin has mastered the game of real estate. He has. He pretty much, like, you just wake up and like he's got it. Okay, but there's certain things he's working on that we've talked about, because I know that still give him a challenge. That's how you get into flow between 100 and 110%.
Yeah, I think it's important to maintain that flow, because it keeps things interesting, right? Like it's that overcoming the burnout. Because when you're not in you get to a point where it's not challenging anymore, and so there's a part of, it's kind of like, you talked about repetition. So it's a combination of overcoming that boredom and avoiding the burnout. So how do you do that? Like, how do you?
Well, you got to keep growing. So I run my sales team in San Diego, and I've changed my team. Gosh, I don't know how many times, right? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Why do you talk to any? Look at everybody we've interviewed on labs so far. I mean, I don't know how many we've had. We're on 12, 13 labs. I guarantee it's a theme if you dive into it. We all have started doing something that worked really well, and then we stopped doing it. Like, for no reason, just because we got bored, we got misdirected. So part of that's okay. Like, you need a little bit of variety in your life. But if you're earlier on in your career, if you're an agent who's new or starting out, like, lay into that repetition, because that repetition builds a foundation for confidence, which gets you into flow. You got to build a foundation. So you have to know where you're at if you're newer or more experienced, and vary that, right? If you are a really seasoned agent, you're going to change it up. You're not going to be able to repeat the same thing over and over again, especially if your tolerance for repetition is a lot lower than mine. I can make the same call to a buyer or a seller 1,000 times in a row because I don't get bored with it. I can eat the same thing for breakfast every day for 4 years, and my wife thinks I'm insane.
Wait, what is that? What do you eat for breakfast?
For breakfast, these days I eat 3 slices of gluten-free bread with almond butter and blueberry jam. Like, that's super easy. I don't think about it. Yeah, it's delicious, dude.
All right. I love this. So, dude, that took up like 8 or 9 minutes. So here, to wrap up, tell us, agent-wise, broker-wise, team-wise, what's the recommendation that you're saying? Guys, focus on this over the next 6 months, because this is the most important thing. Yeah.
Human connection. So I obsess over human connection, client experience. Make sure that your buyers and sellers are getting the most incredible experience they can on the planet. Okay. If there's a train going by, I don't know if you guys can hear that train.
I heard it. I was wondering who it was.
I'm on the wrong side of the tracks. So, but really, if you obsess over the client experience and the human interaction, everything else falls into place. Like, if I'm just a nice person. It's how I'm wired. If you're not wired that way, figure out ways to be nice to people on purpose. If you are wired that way, lean into it. Because right now with COVID, with everything in the world, that really is the only thing that matters, is how we make each other feel. There's so much stuff in this world that's hard. And I fall to the same victim, the same stuff as everybody else. I don't wake up feeling this excited, although some days I do. But I feed my brain with things, and I connect with people like these guys on the screen, like you, Tristan, like you, Kevin, that are positive. And it keeps me in that space where I can just continue to give out energy to everybody else.
There's a good book that I'm sure Tristan's read it, because Tristan's read every book. But it's called Managing Oneself by Peter Drucker.
Yes.
And it kind of goes in line with what you're talking about. And really, it's about focusing on your strengths. And if I focus on my strengths, I can get into flow a lot easier, because I'll enjoy what I'm doing, because I'm naturally good at it, because it's my strong point, strong suits. So I think defining what those things are early is important, whether we're new agent, new team leader, new product, or new thing that we're trying out. Just think about how can I thrive, and just focus in on that. And that's what the book is. It's kind of a brief summary.
I love it. What was that book called?
It's called Managing Oneself by Peter Drucker. It's
I love it.
short little book. So if you've got ADD, it's perfect because it's little.
And the other book someone was asking was called The Rise of Superman, Stephen Kotler. That was the other book I was talking about earlier.
I love it, dude. All right. So what are you excited about in 2021?
Everything.
20 seconds. Go.
I'm excited about the interaction of technology and real estate agents making ourselves more powerful than ever before, but creating a more authentic experience. That's where we're going. We're automating the authentic experience, and we're going to do it at scale, but yet we're really getting connected, because once you get everything else out of the way, that's all that matters, is that human connection.
That was good, man. You nailed it. You did it way better than me.
Wait, you practiced.
I didn't practice it. I just made that up, dude. I just made that one up.
That was good. That was like a freestyle.
It was like rapping, wasn't it?
I used to. You heard me freestyle battle? Let's do that. Let's come on.
You would beat us for sure, Jesse. I love it. Thanks for being on, Jesse. Thanks for co-hosting, dude. I appreciate it, Kevin.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely, guys. That was fun.
That was fun, man. Fun.
There we go, baby.
See you guys.
Right on.